My name's Colin Finch, and I have since 2019. In fact, I think it was Paul who said earlier that people fear public speaking more than death. And that's not a line I would use in my work, because I'm actually, Paul, a funeral celebrant. I think that'll go down fairly badly. That being said, I wanted to tell you a little bit more about my work, how I started in, because people always say, how did you get started? It's not the kind of industry you'd naturally gravitate towards, unless you're probably quite morbid, I think, in some respects. Although I have to say, the people I work with in the funeral industry are amazing. There's no bullshit in the funeral industry. People are dead and they deal with it and they give the family what they need in terms of support. I started my work in 2019, and I was going to tell you about my first ever service. It's quite interesting. You always remember your first one. And her name was Florrie, and she was 93, and she'd been married to Dennis. Well, they were childhood sweethearts at school, so that's how long they'd been together. And I was understandably very nervous. It's my first ever service. I trained for 3 months with Humanist UK, so we're a non-religious organisation, and they suddenly let me loose. And obviously I hadn't done this before. I'd watched them, I'd practiced it, but there's nothing like looking at a congregation of very sad people to blood you, so to speak. And there were probably about 70, 80 people in the congregation that day, and it was a very sad service. And I was, as I said earlier, I was very nervous, and everyone was crying. And something I knew there'd be sadness in the room. I wasn't expecting everyone, and it was some worse than others. And a lady called Stephanie, who I still work with, so works for funeral directors, she was at the back, so I thought I'd just have a bit of eye contact with her, just to kind of steady me down a bit. And I looked at her and she was crying as well. So I thought, this is obviously quite a hard service. So we get to the point of the committal, and I've got in front of me a display controlling the music, so I can fade it in and out, start it, and also 4 buttons. I've been told there'd be 2 buttons, but here there were 4 buttons for the curtains, and they had voile at this one. It was like a see-through curtain as well. So I checked with the family, would you rather do the see-through voile curtain? Yeah. So I checked with the attendant, he said, yeah, that's the second one down. So we get to the point of the committal, and I asked everybody to stand, and I said, and this is the point where we now have to say goodbye to the part of Florrie that we can't take away with us today. So everyone stands, and I press the button so the curtains start the music, have a little bit of accompanying music on there as well. And her husband gets up, stop, I want to say goodbye to her. Well, what the attendant hadn't shown me was the button to stop the curtains. And I was panicking, so I pressed the wrong one, I go faster, the big curtains, I didn't know, and I thought it must be the one at the bottom, so I pressed the one at the bottom, and luckily the curtains stopped, and he came up, and family came up, and everyone came round the coffin, and I just basically put the service on hold for 2 or 3 minutes, which I haven't done since. And I've done well over 100 services. I've never done that again. So I stopped it, sat everybody down, and just made sure everyone was happy for us to continue. And that went fine. And then at the end, Steph came over to me, so you handled that really well. But that's your experience going through. And I said, that was my first ever service. And she went, whoa. And she said that was, in all the years she'd been doing, probably the hardest in terms of emotion. So we have a lot to deal with. How did I get into it? I started at the start. I actually did a reading at my dad's funeral in 2011, and people clapped. I actually walked onto Looney Tunes, so I thought I'd make it a bit different with, because we used to watch cartoons together. And I got through that, and then I joined the Humanists, and I thought I'd like to try really to test myself more than anything. I didn't think I'd be able to do it, but here I am 6 years later, love the work, and I'm going to continue to do it as long as I live. Thank you.